Hi everyone, or in my language, Ngai, and welcome to the first Warrior Heart Activation Gathering call. So it looks like it's just you and me and whoever finds this recording in a future time and date. So I'm going to start by smoking. So this is Indigenous or Native Sage, and this is an abalone shell. And this is just our way of grounding ourselves for the ceremony and this moment and what's to come. And I'm so excited to be here with you. This moment will be exactly as it is meant to be, as it is needed right here and right now. And yes, I'm disappointed that no one else is on this call live, and I'm still going to go ahead with the call. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to meet with you. I'm going to plant this seed here, and we are going to go ahead with the 7-day activation challenge. And the purpose, the intention behind this moment is to start to create some momentum in the Warrior Heart movement community through awakening. What does the Warrior Heart mean for us in the here and now? Creating space for ourselves to stop the busyness and the noise of life, both external and internal, and giving ourselves permission, honoring ourselves by staying still for a moment and meeting the moment for what it is. Thank you, sweetheart.
You're welcome.
It's a quandong seed. I'll explain these at a future date. And I'm doing this call with you in the reality, meeting the moment for what it is, in the messiness of life, which is my 4-year-old in the background, and me not allowing my nerves to get in the way of me showing up for you, and the disappointment that no one was able to or chose to show up live to this call, and yet here we are in this moment. So it is the 21st of September 2025, and this is our first Warrior Heart Activation Challenge. Now, the purpose behind the challenge, like I said, is to create a moment in time where you press pause on the world and the noise, both internal and external, to sit with yourself and really look at your life, look at who you are being, and is there alignment there? Is there truth there? Are you being who you want to be? Are you being who you're called to be? Are you happy? Are you safe? Do you feel like your life has meaning and purpose beyond the noise and the busyness? Do you feel like you have purpose and meaning in your own life? Do you feel like you have a home within your own self, in your own home? And it's also a moment to say no more to survival being a way of life, to being done with your own shit, to being done with your own excuses, your own fear. And either you're done with it or it's done with you. And I've experienced both. And what I mean by that is that people get to a certain point, particularly people who have a bigger calling on their life or who have more power and potential and a greater purpose than what they're settling for. And they get to a point in their own life where they wake up and they're repeating the same things, they're on autopilot, and they just can't settle anymore. They can't sit in that space. They can't be with themselves in that space and that version of themselves. But then life, the universe, ancestors, God, whoever is your guiding entity outside of yourself, they're also done with you playing small. And life will tap you on the shoulder. Life will call your attention. It will whisper to you. It will speak to you. And for some of us who are meant for something more than what we're settling for, if you don't listen when life speaks to you, it will whisper, it will nudge, and then it will push, and then it will just put a bus or a boulder on you where you have no choice but to pay attention, and your life implodes or you implode. And the point of this moment is to take responsibility not to get to those moments. you've probably, if you take a moment to look back over your life, there's probably been moments or seasons where you knew something needed to change, whether it was something that you were doing or who you were that needed to shift, to evolve, to let go of, to surrender, whatever your experience was, because who you were being and the life you were living was no longer in alignment to where you're called to go or who you desire to be. And life whispered at you and you didn't listen. You looked over your shoulder and then you kept going, or you kept continuing in the status quo. And then it kept nudging you and it kept getting louder and louder and sometimes more painful until it got to a point where it took your knees out from under you and you had no choice but to face what was happening. And then sometimes what comes with that, the ripple effect, is the shame and the guilt and the consequences of knowing you needed to change, of knowing you had a window, an opportunity, an invitation to change. Hold that thought. So if you heard the noise in the background, that was my 4-year-old stumbling down the stairs with his books because we've just built a new shelf and he wanted to take everything from our room to the new shelf and set it up. So I will try to pick up where I left off. Knees being cut out from under you, I believe I was at. And the guilt and the shame and the consequences that can come from that come as a consequence of not taking action when we first felt the call. And then we can dig a hole even deeper where we become our own enemies because we choose to beat ourselves up for the things that we didn't do rather than stopping and being accountable to, yes, we knew we got the call, but maybe there was a reason, maybe we didn't feel safe enough and our nervous system wasn't ready to receive the truth of who we would have to become, the things we would have to do, and what we would be walking away from, or when we start to speak our truth, who would walk away from us in this evolution, this reclamation. Because that's the thing. Sometimes when we take the time to sit with this, it isn't necessarily the birthing of a new you. And sometimes it isn't also these big moments. It's these small moments of truth, of a wound that is tender, of a spirit that is tired, and you just get to a point where you are done being anything less than your full self in your full humanity, or life is done with you being small and resisting, and it drags you by force. And then when we sit down and we start to look at it, we want to shut down even more and retreat even more because we knew that we could have done something different. We could have done something to prevent this or to get ahead of this, whatever your this is. Whether it's a health thing, a financial thing, a relationship thing, a life thing, an internal or external thing, a career thing, a family thing. And the only thing we can do really is to find the courage to accept things as they are and to have the courage to be able to move towards the purpose or the calling or the aspiration that we have. And pain is the greatest motivator because pain gets to a point where you cannot ignore it. And yet, in this next season for myself, I don't want pain to be my greatest driver. I want purpose. I want to enjoy my life. I want to wake up being excited for the day ahead. Yes, things may be hard and challenging, but it's the internal state with which I'm meeting myself in my life. It's the internal state that I'm choosing to show up in my own life and to move from being on autopilot and survival as a way of life to learning how to live again. And why I say reclamation instead of rebirth, and for some people it's a reclamation and a rising, is because we've had to press pause on who we have always been, or we've had to walk away from parts of ourselves, or we've been conditioned either through our own internal interpretations of an event or a story or a moment that happened, and then the story that we made and the meaning that we made around that moment, about what that moment meant, but also who we were in that moment and what comes after that. or the world has told you that you're not allowed to be this person, you're not enough, you're not worthy, you're not allowed, you're not safe, or you've had an experience where when you spoke your truth or you were in your truth as your true self, you were not safe, you were not accepted, you were not wanted, you were not chosen, like whatever your experience is. So you shut down that part of yourself and you either became someone else or you became a shadow version of your truth in order to fit in and belong. And yet, belonging at the cost of our truth is not true belonging at all. It's self-abandonment. And also for those of us that are called to lead or hold many roles in our life, we are often living, leading, loving, and serving from a place of burnout and self-abandonment because we have been conditioned to believe or told that everyone else comes first, everyone else comes before us. In a world that is so filled with chaos and crisis, it can be so easy to put ourselves on the as the last thing on our list, that our health doesn't matter until it's the only thing that matters because we're in hospital or we're so sick or whatever is our thing becomes so loud that we cannot ignore it because it's right there, it's front and center. Our finances, like we continue on in the status quo until we can't, until we're at risk of losing our home or we're facing bankruptcy or we're facing debts and bills because we've just ignored, we've turned away. Our relationships, we've settled for less than the truth of what the relationship is, but we've chosen for ourselves and the other person to settle for less than what we really want, desire, deserve. And you're scared that when you do start to speak your truth, that that relationship or that other person or people will not choose you back. But here's the thing, when we let other people be themselves in the world and in our own worlds, rather than loving them from an expectation of who we want them to be and loving them for who they truly are, and sometimes in that love, it means when we speak our truth, if they choose to not walk that journey with you and they choose to say no and walk away, or they expect you to be only the version of yourself that they allow, and you still choose your truth, that is one of the bravest things and sometimes hardest things that we have to do. But this could be a chapter, it could be a page in your life story. It doesn't have to become the whole life story. And some of us are on autopilot, some of us are shut down, and life feels so chaotic and in such crisis and survival mode that we don't feel like we've got anything left. And yet, from my own experience and walking this journey for years in the making, this moment, years in the making, is that when a seed is planted into country, in order for it to start to take root and become whatever it's meant to become, it has to first break open. And it doesn't know the distance between where it's been planted to the surface of how much it's going to have to sit in the darkness and push through until it hits that first light. And in order for it to do that, in order for it to become a tree that provides shade or fruit to others, it has to first take from country what it needs. And often self-care and being well within ourselves and having boundaries is often positioned to us as being selfish. And yet I see it as an obligation, as a responsibility, as being accountable to ensuring that we are well enough, that we are in alignment, and that we are in integrity with who we are, who we really are in our truth and our humanity. And that we then first take from our environment what we need to be well and grounded in that truth, so that when we show up to lead or serve or love others or show up for our own lives, we can do so from a place of well-being, from a place of overflow. Because here's what I practice is that my wealth is founded in my conditions of being well mentally, physically, emotionally, with being in alignment, going, okay, I'm doing the things I need to do to be well, to be resourced, to in order to meet my obligations, in order to meet my responsibilities. But even more deeply than that, is to meet the power and the potential and the truth of who I am called to be, but also who I want to become. This space is for those who are already on the journey or who are feel called or compelled to move and to let go of everything that does not benefit, that does not honor, that does not respect, and is not in reciprocity and active relationship with your truth of who you are and who you're called to become. And our full selves in our humanity. And I know the price of peace. I also know the price of the cost of self-abandonment and burnout. And I refuse to role model that in order to be a good mum or a good carer, a good leader, is that I need to self-abandon. And I also refuse that to role model that in order to be a good leader is to do so from burnout. Burnout and self-abandonment are not in my character. It is not in how I show up. And I wasn't prepared for what it would cost me when I chose my peace and my warrior heart over settling for the status quo, over settling for a self and a life and a space where I wasn't allowed to, and I could not be my full expression of myself, where I had to moderate myself, where I had to hide parts of myself, where I had to cut off or diminish parts of myself in order to belong, to be safe, to be wanted, to be allowed to exist in those relationships, in those dreams, in those spaces. So, this warrior heart activation is about creating space to sit with yourself, to sit with your truth around what is resonating right now. What is something that has been calling you and just pulls you, it lights you up? What is something there? And what is a great pain or wound that the more you let it fester, the more harm that it does. So there's two sides of this. It's identifying something that calls you, it pulls you in, and something that is holding you stuck in suffering and in pain. And then how do we sit with those two things and look at creating an action, micro steps on how can we start to address the thing that is causing us suffering and pain, whether it's an actual situation, whether it's our own mindset, our own responding or reaction to the situation. It's a difficult conversation with a family member. It's a change of career. It's debilitating debt or not having enough income to live from a place where you can actually live and meet your bills and be well in how you do that. Whatever your thing is, it's sitting with it and allowing ourselves to be with the truth of what it really is. And then it's about accepting that we're not going to settle for anything less than what we are capable of doing to deal with that, to address that. And then it's identifying the next 1 to 3 steps of what we can do to move from that place. And then the second thing is looking at something that calls us, that lights us up. Because here's what I know to be true. When you are in alignment with yourself and you are moving from your truth, you don't need batteries. You don't need energy because it becomes its own energy source because we move from a place of trust. We move from a place of alignment and that has its own energy source. And then we don't need discipline or motivation because they become a natural way of being when we are committed and we are convicted in the choices that we are making. We are grounded in who we are and the vision and the path that we're walking, even if we only know what the next step is. And then the deeper third part of this is the courage to sit with yourself and go, who am I really called to be? Who am I really choosing to be? And that's about creating space. It's about regulating the nervous system. It's about getting in touch with our intuition, our inner voice. And then it's creating space to hear that, a practice, a ceremony. And then when the truth speaks to us, it speaks to us in simplicity. It is often a one word or a sentence or a vision. It is not a big paragraph. And then when you start to have doubt or you start to justify or try to understand the how rather than the what or the why, sometimes we only get given the what, we don't even know the why or the how. That's when we know it's not our intuition, it's our doubt, our fear, our ego, whatever else it is coming in and trying to be logical about things. And then we start to set something, we pick something that is going to create change for us. One habit, drinking water, journaling, moving our body for 5 minutes, whatever. So you're identifying what is your greatest pain or suffering. What is something that calls you and lights you up, and how can you start to move towards those things? But then sitting space to get to be in relationship with yourself and go, are you already, or are you being who you are called to be? Are you in your full truth? And then from there, we create a space to start to create a plan, a roadmap for how do we move from where we are to who we are. But when we get that message, what's a micro action, a micro step that we can do to embody that version of ourselves and move them from being a future state to a current state? You might not be able to be a wealthy self, because here's the thing, if we go too far outside of where we are, if we go to a point where it's unbelievable or it feels unattainable, if we try to jump from here to that 100% version of ourselves, we're going to shut down, we're going to resist, we're going to self-sabotage. So instead, we're going to breathe into the fear and the discomfort and go, what is a version of myself or a version of that dream or that step that feels safe, that feels like I can do it? It's a stretch. You're not settling, it is a stretch. But there's a difference between being uncomfortable and unsafe. We want to get to a point where we're uncomfortable enough to move and start to create momentum, but not to a point where we shut down and we regress. Because if you try to move too far away from what you've already know to be true, or your beliefs and your habits, your nervous system will shut down, and you consciously might have these desires and aspirations, but at a physiological level, your body will feel unsafe, even if you are moving from crisis and chaos and survival, and you know that this is available and you want this. Your body and your nervous system will choose what is familiar, and it will choose crisis and chaos if that is what is your norm and what has been safe and how you have been operating, over unfamiliar peace. Because sometimes we don't know what to do with peace and stability, so we sabotage it to go back to what feels like our identity, like what feels like our norm. So we're going to create ceremony around this. We're going to sit with ourselves 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever you've got in the morning, to ground yourself in purpose, in ceremony, and intention and movement. But we're going to move from intention. Our intention, our action that we're going to do, is going to be guided from our truth and our intuition. But we're going to do so from a grounded place, not from ego and not from trauma, but from a place of being realistic. What can I do with what I've got? Knowing that as I start to take these micro steps, 15 minutes of hyper focus on one thing, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever your thing is, of going, I matter in my own experience. And then sitting there, and then once you get that guidance and you've taken that time, it's then taking action then and there around what are you going to do to create momentum and movement to what comes next. Because then you're calling it in. You're showing the universe or whoever guides you that you are moving. They will begin to bless and meet you where you are, because how you're showing up and what you're choosing is you're telling life what you want by what you're choosing, by the words that you speak. So the purpose from here is that every day I will create a 3 minute to 10 minute video of what you can do to awaken, be with, and take action to activate and awaken your warrior heart for yourself. There will be journal prompts. And if you're not a writer, talk to it. Get your phone out and go for a walk and just talk the answers out into the world, even if you don't listen to them. This is about creating space for reflection and truth to come through for us to meet ourselves. So you'll get the video, you'll get some journal prompts and some suggestions around what can activate you, and then you'll get a worksheet for the day. How you use this is up to you. This is a gift, it's an invitation, it's an opportunity, because only you can know whether you're settling for less than your full self. Only you can know what that look like. And sometimes just because we know we need to change or we get that calling doesn't necessarily mean that we're safe or that we have the capacity or the capability to move on that. It's like, okay, well, what do I need to build? What needs to be in place for me to be able to do that change or make that decision? This is what this is about going in my warrior heart. What does standing in my power, being my truth, and following my heart look like for me in this season? Because heart, the heart part of the warrior, heart bypasses ego and trauma. The heart forms, is the first thing to form in our mother's womb. When we are conceived into our mother's womb, our heart starts to beat in order for our brain and everything else to form. Our heart beats at 6 weeks old. And regardless of whether you believe it or not, this is science and spirituality, is that we are made up. Like the chances of us being born this version of ourselves in this time and place is you're more likely to win the lotto than you are to do this again in this version of you. So if we can take that and own that and respect the opportunity that we have right here and now to fully step and own into our power and our potential. And it isn't about changing the world. It's about doing the best we can with what we've got and walking in alignment and truth and integrity. And if you are, it's then surrendering the outcomes. It's about allowing that. It's about allowing you doing what is within your power and what is within your capacity to meet life. And when those two things meet, it's trusting that you will be given everything you need to step into the fullest version of yourself. And that the greatest gift we can give to this life, to those that we love and lead and serve, is our truest self, is our fullest self. And finding a way to surrender that may not always be the version of ourselves that others choose to be with, to be in relationship with, to be in life with. And there will come grief, there will become loss. And again, that is out of your control. That is other people choosing themselves and choosing their truth for what that means, and that they don't want to be in relationship or life with you. And you can fight for people who don't want you, or you can fight for yourself and fight to become your truest self. And then maybe at a future date, a future time shift, those relationships may reconnect. But you don't have to do so from a place of self-abandonment or burnout, because we are supposed to matter in our own experience. And self-care and being well is a responsibility, because sometimes we do more harm than good to those that we love and serve when we do so from burnout and being unwell. So I hope that you take this moment to do something for yourself. And over the next 7 days, you will receive that 10-minute video, 3 to 10 minute videos, because this stuff is deep. Some prompts around suggestions, guidance, starting points, fire starters that can help you create and find direction. And then a worksheet that can help you start to move on this, that can start to help you take action and embody this. Wednesday, we will do a check-in call at 10 a.m. on Wednesday to just check in and see how you're going. So the prompts will be put into the community every day, and then they will be saved into the classroom. And then that way, this 7-day challenge, this activation challenge, can sit there as an evergreen piece of content for you to come back to. And then at the end, on the Saturday, on the next Saturday, which will be day 7, we will come together again to go, what did we learn? Who did we become? What shifted for us? What truth came through? It'll be a space for us to be in ceremony, to celebrate, to honor, and then to also plant the seed for what comes next. How are we going to water? How are we going to continue the momentum that we've created from the first 7 days? And take, doesn't matter how many times you have to start again. 7 days doesn't have to be 7 days back to back. I've got another community that I'm a part of, the Neuro Spiritual Method, founded by Giselle Beaumay, and she has a 14-day Neuro Spiritual Manifestation Challenge in there that is about you coming back to your intuition, about hearing yourself, and then rewiring your nervous system, your identity, to ground yourself in the identity that you are manifesting whilst meeting your nervous system and your neural pathways. And I've tried this challenge 3 times before or 2 times before, and it just didn't work. It didn't meet the season that I in it. Just the 14 days back to back just felt too big. So this third time that I'm in it, I've decided that I will do one day every 3 to 5 days. So it's not about this sequential timeline. It's about a timeline that works for me. And I'm currently on, today I'll be on day 7 of the challenge. And it has taken me about 3 weeks to get to day 7. And yet I have been journaling the prompts, what has come up for me. And more importantly, I've been taking action from that. And I feel the shifts within myself. I feel the shifts where the old patterns and pains start to meet the present moment. And I get to choose between my present moment and my power and my potential and who I'm becoming. Or I consciously get to choose old patterns, old pain, and old selves. So this is with the deepest gratitude and respect that I leave this here, that I plant this here for you to find when you are ready. And if you choose to come and start tomorrow, this afternoon, whatever that looks like for you, you are always welcome here. This is always ready to receive you when you feel called, when you feel ready, and when you feel safe and brave enough to come home to yourself, because you are done. All life has made you be done with settling for survival and crisis and chaos as a way of living. Big love from Chantel, the Warrior Heart.